Hello and welcome back to my channel, Dark Moon. I'm Dylan. I've had more than a little bit of beer, but I thought I'd kind of bring back the weekly watch. Thing is, I don't always watch movies. Sometimes I read comics, sometimes I read books, sometimes I play video games, sometimes I watch TV shows. So weekly watch is going to change a little bit, I think, because strictly having it to movies, sometimes I don't watch a lot of movies per week, and so I don't have a lot to talk about. But I mean, since I've been gone so long with this weekly watch stuff, I have quite a few things to talk about. I have my pick of the litter. I was kind of busy with that Joss Whedon video for a hot minute, and I also just released that Transformers, Michael Bay's Optimus Prime video. I've been kicking around a couple other more scripted things, kind of like the Joss Whedon video. Something not so scripted that should be coming out soonish is a video on saying only positive things about the Star Wars movies. I've been strictly watching ape-related movies because I'm so hyped about Godzilla vs. Kong. For the most part, this year, I've watched all 9 of the Planet of the Apes movies, and I've seen the original King Kong, Son of Kong, Mighty Joe Young. I just watched Godzilla vs. Kong, the original Toho one. I rewatched Tenet. Don't like that movie so much. I don't necessarily like to talk about movies that I don't like. I have a lot more fun talking about movies I do like, or aspects of movies that are bad that I like. Though in my personal life, I do like to talk about bad movies a lot. But whenever it comes to the internet, I like to try to put out a little bit more positive things. I just want to say that I love the Planet of the Apes. The original is groundbreaking with its special effects and everything. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen the original, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it. I also like most of the sequels except for the last one. I think all of those are really underrated, actually. I also like the new trilogy. I love the new trilogy. Those are some of my favorite movies ever made. We don't talk about the Tim Burton one. The new trilogy, fantastic. Every single one. The things that I've just watched recently, King Kong, the original, that's a classic. Also groundbreaking special effects, fantastic score, fantastic sound design. There's more than a little bit of dated depictions of black people and some kind of dated qualities with how women are treated in that and how women are written in that, but it's kind of this fantasy adventure fairy tale. It's fascinating, that movie, and I also love the special effects, and I love King Kong as like a character kind of a thing. He's one of those few select monsters that I would call like a character. And Son of Kong is awful. I hated that. I've seen that once before. I think I was like 5. I remember nothing about it. And while rewatching it, I remembered why I remembered nothing about it. And it's because for 45 minutes, nothing happens. Mighty Joe Young is fantastic. I think Mighty Joe Young's special effects hold up to this day. I think they are spectacular, just amazing. The way they seamlessly play with live action elements of the world are amazing. It's just mind-blowing how they achieved the effects that they did, and the story's fine. There's nothing necessarily very mind-blowing about the story. It's very similar to the original King Kong in like loose terms, but they suck out that kind of fantasy element of it with going to this mysterious island and all of that. That all that's gone. This Mighty Joe Young is just a giant ape. He just grew really large for no reason. He's not some ancient species or mythological being or anything. They just kind of, he's just a big ape. Godzilla versus Kong, or King Kong versus Godzilla. That's what the original one's called. That one's fine. I appreciate it for what it's supposed to be. I watched the original Japanese one for the first time, actually, because for the longest time, that was not available in America until the Criterion Collection came out, which I cannot put into words how happy I am that I got that for Christmas. That was not this year, that was last year. That made my Christmas. To be fair, I did say, hey, this is literally all I want. If you don't get me anything else, I won't care. I just want this. And it collects all of the Showa films from the original movie up to Terror of Mechagodzilla, which is something like 16 different movies. One of my prized possessions as a Godzilla fan and as a movie buff and as a Criterion collector. I am not super into Criterion collecting, but I do love the Criterion collection, and I do love what they've put out and what I've grabbed from them. They're spectacular. They how they preserve film, how they all of the special features that they put with the films, just amazing. So I got to finally see the original Japanese cut of Godzilla versus or King Kong versus Godzilla, and it was fine. I mean, it's definitely much better than the Americanized one. It's got a much more even tone. It doesn't feel like you have an entirely different culture trying to edit in elements of their culture and squeezing it into this culture. It doesn't feel like that. That said, there is some Japanese blackface still. There, not just some, there's a lot, and that's kind of embarrassing, and oh no, and why would you do this? Even for the time, I feel like even for the time in the 60s, that was frowned upon. Like, that's bad. And I think the special effects for King Kong specifically look bad. Godzilla looks great. That's one of my favorite Godzilla designs, actually, is the one in King Kong vs. Godzilla, but King Kong himself looks awful. Picture here whenever I edit this. I don't know. I'm recording this on the 24th. This probably won't be uploaded until like Monday. That's just how I roll. I'm lazy and I procrastinate a lot. Hence why there hasn't been a weekly watch in a while. There hasn't been a weekly watch in a while because specifically some big games that I was looking forward to came out. Miles Morales came out, and I dedicated a lot of time to that. And then right after or around Miles Morales, the Destiny 2 Beyond Light expansion came out, and I played a bunch of that because I have a Destiny group. I'm not necessarily a fan of Destiny, but I like to try and keep up with my Destiny group for raid nights. And so I spent quite a fair amount of time with that. And then after that, I played Cyberpunk. A lot of Cyberpunk. And the less said about that, the better. I've read most of the second, but technically fourth Witcher book. Which one's that? Which one is that called? Time of Contempt. Yeah, that's the third one, isn't it? No, yeah, the second one. I've read most of that. I've got I think 30 pages left. I just haven't finished it. I'm loving the Witcher series, what I've read. I just haven't really been able to focus too much on books because I'm too busy focusing on all these other things that I'm trying to do. And more recently, I've been reading a bunch of Swamp Thing. Actually, I've been reading a bunch of comic books in general. I read a ton of the Planet of the Apes comics A ton is kind of exaggerating, but I read a lot of the Planet of the Apes comics. And quickly found that all the ones based off of the original series are really good. A lot of the ones based off of the newer trilogy are really bad. I don't know why that is. The ones based off the newer trilogy feel the need to like undercut what makes the new trilogy good, and feels the need to ruin some of the characters, in my opinion. I don't know why they do that. I'm not a fan of the newer trilogy comics. I love the new trilogy, but the comics are not that very good. That said, things like Exile on the Planet of the Apes and Betrayal of the Planet of the Apes, those are fantastic. They are great follow-ups to, well, they're prequels actually. They're great prequels to the original Planet of the Apes and all of the things that that series plays on. I love those. They they're great, and so is the art. The art's really good for them too. The Kong on the Planet of the Apes. Since I just watched literally back to back all the Planet of the Apes movies and all the King Kong movies. There's also the Kong of the Planet of the Apes comic book, which is delightful. It's King Kong and the Planet of the Apes, and it's like a direct sequel to the original Planet of the Apes, and I loved it. It tackles the idea of what a giant ape would mean to this society really well and very interestingly. I loved Kong on the Planet of the Apes. That was the favorite of, I think, the like 5 or 6 different series that I read. Otherwise, more recently, I've been reading Swamp Thing. I've been reading. I started the Alan Moore run a long time ago for Swamp Thing, and I had picked up this second volume because I got it for Christmas recently, and started reading it and decided, you know what? I should read the original comics first, because there's not many, actually. There's only like 30, 40 issues of comics before the Alan Moore run, and I was like, I can catch up on that very easily. So I did. I caught up on that very easily. They're fine. The ones before the Alan Moore run. I like Moore's direction of the character, making him more of like a Fae-like being, and all of the weird existential shit that he does with Swamp Thing. But before that is very it's very B horror vibes. It's not great, but I liked it. It's fun. But it doesn't really tackle any deeper questions or do anything particularly interesting with the character. Swamp Thing's main power in all 40 of those comics are that he's very strong. It doesn't really like go into how he's a god almost. He like the Alan Moore ones do. I've been keeping busy, but that's about all that I've been doing. I mean, before I got on this ape kick, because I started watching ape stuff after the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer dropped. So before that, I had seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was a delightful little stop motion movie by Wes Anderson. I'm of the belief that Wes Anderson's style is a lot better in animated form than live action. I think he should stick to animation primarily. But Fantastic Mr. Fox was delightful. I loved it. And I also saw the original Total Recall, which I'm a big fan of Paul Verhoeven, specifically because of Starship Troopers. So I loved Total Recall as well. That movie was a blast. I don't think you could pick a more 80s, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, though it did come out in 1990. But that is just like, that is the most Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s film ever, while also being like one of the best Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s films ever. But again, came out in 1990, so kind of cheating, but whatever. I loved it. I also saw David Lynch's Rabbits, which is a short film web series sort of thing. That's a whole nightmare and a half. I read it as David Lynch's commentary on sitcoms being a nightmare if you take them literally. And I totally agree with him to an extent. I liked Rabbits. It's a little repetitive. I think I would have preferred it if it was like maybe 20 minutes shorter, like half the length. But for what it is, I really like it and appreciate it. More recently, I replayed the Resident Evil 3 remake for the Bootleg Anxiety channel. That's a co-owned channel with a friend of mine, Will, and we played Resident Evil 3 Remake for that. Well, I did. Specifically, I controlled Jill and all of that. Had a good time doing that. I really like Resident Evil and Resident Evil 3 Remake. I am so pumped for Resident Evil 8 Village. I might do a whole video about that whenever it comes out. Who knows? I'm also likely going to cover all of the ape primate based movies that I watched in anticipation for Godzilla vs. Kong. Speaking of Godzilla vs. Kong, I'm going to live stream my reaction of that on Twitch. I might live stream it on YouTube too. I'm going to live stream that whenever it drops at, I think it'll be midnight Pacific time, yes, on March 28th or something like that. I'm gonna watch it the night it comes out, and I'm going to live stream my reaction to it. That's all I've got to say. That's it. Please like this video if you liked it. Go check out that not the Superman, the Optimus Prime video I just did. I put like an hour's worth of editing into it, and it shows. Subscribe too if you're new to the channel and all of that. Like, why aren't you subscribed, and why are you watching me if you're not subscribed? Subscribe. Click that. It's the red button, I think, if you're not subscribed. Click that. Click the like. Comment about what you think of any of the things that I've talked about, and maybe if you have suggestions. What primate movie should I watch next? Too late. I am going to watch King Kong Escapes. But after King Kong Escapes, what should I watch next? Let me know. I don't know. There's probably a bajillion primate movies in the world, and I only know of like 20 or 30. So yeah. Comment, like, subscribe, all of that stupid YouTube algorithm trash. I love you.